ready.
Hello, I'm Laara Copely-Smith, and Fiona Adams and Garry Ryan are both with me today, and we are going to explore the inner child and the shadow child and how they play a key role in our lives later on in our life. So we've just been talking, haven't we, about many people are not aware that that inner child can play havoc, and that a lot of people are not aware that the inner child is still, you know, kind of flowing through our adult lives. And I'm going to hand it over to one of you to tell us more.
I think Garry can start, and I'll just ask the difficult questions, Garry.
Great. I'll make something up for the difficult questions then. From the child's perspective, inner child. So I work a lot with people with inner child. Almost everything comes back to that inner child aspect. Some good examples of what that might look like. You're in a shopping centre, or you're out in public and you see an adult having a tantrum. Some guys, goes a bit on to what we talked about last week, the anger thing. Let's use a man, for example. He's there in the middle of the street, he's raging around, or looks like he's sulking, you know, and this is the child coming out. This is that aspect of us that is not getting what it wants in that moment, and it's having a tantrum or it's sulking. And that is, if you really look at someone doing that, you can actually get a feeling for how old their behavior is. And that's how old, that's the age of the child coming out, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. And in all sorts of ways we see that. Men and women do it, we all do it, it's all there. Mm-hmm. And that is essentially controlling our life, and we don't, and until we become aware, we aren't aware, and it's making decisions for us, and there's an impact on ourselves, and there's an impact on everybody around us. Have a look at Parliament, watch Parliament. What does that look like? That looks like an out of control kindergarten, because there's a whole bunch of little children running our countries, shouting and screaming and abusing each other. That is bullying and tantrums, and I'm not being heard. Seriously, have a close look at it. That's amazing. That's
and some of the inner child stuff, from what I've seen, can be a little subtle too. I mean, obviously we're talking about the tantrums, the adult throwing the tantrums or crying or whatever, but I can see it in subtle ways too, like adults can be a bit controlling, and that's the inner child trying to get their needs met rather than from the adult perspective and meeting their own needs. So there's actually lots of subversive ways that the inner child runs our lives as well, not just the whole tantrum thing or someone breaking down in tears, etc. What do you think, Garry?
I agree. It runs across the board. The manipulating behavior, because that's what we learnt as a child to get what we want, in very subtle ways and very obvious ways. And it all comes back to not heard, not being loved the way we want to be loved, not being acknowledged. These really basic things that we didn't get from our parents. And truthfully, they didn't know what they didn't understand. They didn't know. Kids don't come with a book and all that sort of story. However, in all of that, it's still no excuse for the behavior. But we also, you know, we took that on, and we still have a choice as an adult to think about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and the energy that we're throwing out and the words that we're throwing out towards people. Is this really helping us? And not to suppress that bit, because the flip side of it is the fun side of it, as we discovered in our discussion earlier on, that because that playful side is really important. That's the fun bit of the inner child as well.
And
it's just noticing and when it runs our life, isn't it? If we're doing huge tantrums in the shopping centre as an adult, it's not really a healthy way of interacting and dealing with things. So it's more when the inner child is running our lives in an inappropriate way that we need to look at it. So Laara, you were talking about some inner child stuff earlier too.
yeah, well, actually, I was just going to mention then that so really it comes back to some elements around when we're a child and we're not heard or loved, and we develop strategies as the child to receive what we need, and then they kind of grow into our adult strategies, so to speak, that we then utilize unknowingly and sometimes knowingly as adults to get what we need or what we feel we need. But from my perspective, yeah, I'd mentioned that probably naughty was my strategy as a child, being naughty and the rebel. Yes, that does follow me through into adulthood to a degree. And I'd say that my brother also was one who had that, you know, being mischievous and naughty and doing stuff that would get him into trouble to get attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yep.
attention of any sort.
Yeah, and when you look at some of the things we're talking about in the women and money, we're talking about the limiting beliefs. Some of those are inner child type things, like the people pleasing is that child that just wants love, or the perfectionist, or anything it's going for the love and the attention. So it actually interlinks. You know, if you can start working on the inner child, then you can change all aspects of your life.
Absolutely. And the learnt behaviors around money and the beliefs that come from money from our parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the inner
have
child,
to work
so
hard, all that stuff.
Yep, exactly.
And
sorry, Laara.
I was just going to say, and in fairness, our parents taught from what they'd been taught. So we've spoken about it before. It's kind of a historical thing that just moves through whole families, and it's passed on until, you know, there's someone who's going to break those patterns, or at least break the patterns that are connected to them, you know, them as individuals.
Yeah, it's not about blaming the
Someone has to make a
parents. It's
stand.
about noticing the behaviours. Sorry, Garry, go for it.
Yeah, definitely. No, it is. It's definitely all of that. And because it's not about whether or not we love our parents. And I get that there are parents who are absolutely atrocious. And I've worked with people that have gone through that. But in a general sense, in a general term, most parents are they're really doing their best, you know. They are. As a parent myself, made a mess of some things, did some things well, did some things average. Yet I took on stuff of my parents. I took on behaviors and patterns and things like that. And it's been a process to work through that. And again, coming back to, as we talked much earlier on, listening to the voice. Is that my voice? Is that really my voice? Is that my parents' voice from my childhood that's coming through, that repetitive belief about, am I worth it? What does money mean to me? All of this sort of thing, everything in our life. And we can, so a situation, the way I see it working is that a situation comes up, and instantly, because we've got that learnt behavior and that protection mechanism, whether it's fight, flight, freeze, whatever it is, our psychology goes straight back to maybe a 5-year-old, knows that this is the behavior that worked back then, because there's a repeat pattern back there. It got done once, and then it got done a second time, and then it got done a third time. So I got what I wanted, some form of attention. It brings it back into the present moment and then outplays that exact same behavior in the moment, whatever that is. And so it goes back and then brings it into the present moment And that's the behavior that comes out. And that's the child running the adult.
And I think part of that is acknowledging that child, but once you acknowledge it and you're a little bit aware of it, sometimes even the awareness starts to change the behaviors. But also, what does that child need? Does the child need some attention, acknowledgement, some love? And what can we do as the grown-up with the child in there to give the child that? Because when we're always looking outside of ourselves to get the acknowledgement and love, whatever the child needs, it's outside. It needs to come more from the inside. And that's not an easy thing to do, but that's part of the journey.
It is. It has to come inside, from the inside.
And so it's fine having that awareness of where that pattern or voice is coming from. Is it coming from the child and the child's unmet needs? And if you know the pattern that you're beginning to see that's emerging, you know, what other tools can you use in your life to fulfill that child, to give the child what she needs or what he needs?
Absolutely. It comes back to...
depends. Sorry, go on.
No, keep going.
It depends on what the child needs. So, for example, I was reading some things on anxiety the other day, and there's all sorts of self-soothing techniques. So if you're the sort of person whose child gets very anxious, you could learn all those self-soothing techniques so that you can actually soothe your inner child, so then you can function in the world. Because if you're constantly in this huge anxiety mode, you're not going to be able to function very well. So you can actually take those self-soothing techniques and work out which ones help you. It's practice. And then there'll be other techniques for anger or whatever, you know, is happening with the child.
Yeah, I really believe that, and from my personal experience, that we don't have to carry any of that. We can actually shift all of that and have a very, very healthy relationship with our inner child. And all of that anxiety and those feelings of stress and those feelings of panic even are absolutely changeable and can all be let go, so that we come into a very peaceful center, no matter what's going on with our life, no matter what's going on around us. And because that child is waiting for us. He's been waiting for me. And one of the things I do, a strategy I do use, is if I do feel nervous, because it does still come up, if I do feel nervous when I'm about to go and have a conversation with someone, because I never frame it up as if this is going to be an argument, because why does it need to be an argument? This is a conversation. Never use those sort of aggressive words, because that does not help me and my stepping into it, or anybody else stepping into it. I'm about to have a conversation with someone and I'm going to ask for what I want. Let's say, well, if I'm feeling nervous about that, I can feel that in my body. So and it's something I learned from someone else, and I talk to which part of me is that, it feels like my teenager, or it feels like the child. I don't have to be specific about it. It just feels like a younger part of myself. And I say, okay, you don't have to be involved in this. This is not your job. I'm the adult. I will deal with this. I want you to go be in the backpack behind me or out of the way, go and fly on a dragon, go and stay on the beach, you don't have to be in this. You don't need to be a part of this, because this is not your concern. A child's role, a teenager's role, is to explore life and have fun. And that's what he should be doing. And so I get him to do that, and I let him go, and I can feel, and I can feel that energy just let go. It goes. And then I can go and have a conversation, and I can ask for what I want. I can say the words that I need to say.
So how would you deal with the angry part of you? Same way or a different strategy?
It's a little different. We really have to get to the source of the anger. When we're older, we're projecting it at people. There's a point where we'll discover that we're actually angry at ourselves. Quite often we'll identify somebody else that we're angry at, mum or dad, usually, something like that. But at least once we've identified someone that we're angry at, then that gives us something to work with. And why? And then we can dig into the emotion of the anger and then the reasons around all of that. And then if it goes somewhere else, great. But at least we've got a good start point, and the conversation will take the person into far more deeply what's actually going on behind the anger. Because as we discussed last week, it can be the first of many real emotions.
So I imagine you might do that when a person's not in the middle of anger, because I imagine they need some strategies when they're full-blown anger because they're not thinking straight.
Yeah,
might need to do something like stop, take a deep breath, think what you're going to go, maybe go for a walk or something, dissipate the anger. But that work would be done when they're calmer. Would that be right?
Yes, it's got to go somewhere. But then, it comes to, you got to make a choice. Are you going to do something about this emotion that's disrupting life, or not? And if you're not going to, well, great, but don't throw it and spread it around on people, because that's really not right, and it's really not okay. It's your shit, so you deal with it. Don't spray it all over your wife and your family and your partner and your friends and everybody else that's around you. Sort your own shit out and go and have a tantrum by yourself. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, make the other choices, and there's only two choices. The other choice is you go and find out, and you go and work with someone that can help you, because it's so deeply emotional. It's too difficult to find out the cause, as I've said before. If you could sort it out yourself, you would have by now. You need to get help. You need someone who, and if the first person you go to is not working, go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. Go until you find the right person, a man or a woman, that'll help you actually go to the source of it. If you're having a conversation that's going around in circles, you're wasting your time, and all they're doing is taking money off you. Mm-hmm. But if that feels good for you, great. Send me money and you'll have the same result. Right?
Yeah. I agree. If you've got an issue, say huge anger or huge anxiety, etc., I think you need to go seek help. I mean, there's a lot on the internet, but I do think that seeing someone that can deal with the inner child work, I think, is just very, very valuable. Really, really important. And I'm sure there's little inner child things that pop up that are just a bit annoying, and you might not need to really work on those straight off. I imagine that you need to work on the ones that are causing the most issues for you or your family.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how sometimes something that doesn't seem like much actually has a whole lot more going on underneath. So start somewhere, anywhere, and realize that everybody's in the same place. We all have this stuff going on, and it gets easier. It really gets easier, and it's challenging work, and it can be really difficult, and there can be a lot of fear come up and whatever. But it's just so much easier. Life's so much easier on the other side, because we're not waking up in the morning with this big list of stuff that I need to be angry about or fearful about or whatever. And because all this energy is going over here, when we start to strip all that out, and we get more energy back into the things that we really want to do in life, the things that are actually giving us joy and happiness.
Creativity, and fun, connecting with people, enjoying life, going out and doing the things you want to do, because you're not sitting there being angry at what the neighbour did 10 years ago, or frightened about what might or might not happen in 2 weeks' time. Yeah,
like how much of that do you want to drag around in life? Like, that stuff's literally heavy. And changing the mindset around it. And someone like Bruce Lipton, who's done so much research on, he's showing the physical effect of that on our bodies and what happens when we do this work. and people like him are showing us what actually happens chemically within our body when we go and do this work and we go and change these things, and how that impacts the cells in every part of our body. And therefore, and it starts with a thought. We change our thoughts and go, I want to be a better person. I want to have a better life, and I will do whatever it takes. And that's the important bit. The willingness, that's our energy inside that takes us through. And as soon as we go, I really want to change this, I guarantee it'll happen. The right person will turn up. Someone will turn up that might go, oh yeah, hey, I had that thing and I know someone. It could lead us onto a path to exactly the right person who's amazing for us.
I like that statement, to do whatever it takes. Acknowledge that there's this inner child that's running your life and it's not working in whatever capacity it is, and doing whatever it takes to sort that out.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And I just had a thought in that moment of, right now, I don't feel loved. I don't actually feel acknowledged. And that's why I'm upset. And that's why I'm shouting, or that's why I've run off and I'm gone silent. And, whatever that avoidance behavior is, or avoidance or attack. Yeah, I'm actually not feeling heard right now. I'm not feeling like I'm being respected.
And that takes a lot of work and awareness to get to that point. And that's why, it's doing whatever you have to do to get to that point, to understand that. I think that's so important, such a great message.
Yeah, and it just has to start. It has to start somewhere with a simple statement. I don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. I want to have a better life.
I agree.
Something like that.
Perfect. Thank you, Garry.
My pleasure, Fiona. Thank you. And we'll talk to Laara again soon, I hope.